Every house has a heartbeat, a rhythm of footsteps, laughter, arguments, and silence. But some houses stop breathing. They sit abandoned at the end of overgrown roads, behind rusted gates and boarded windows, holding on to whatever was left behind. Most of the time, that is furniture, broken dishes, old photographs yellowing in their frames. But sometimes it is something else, something that should never have been left at all. Tonight, we go inside 7 of those houses, 7 real locations across America where explorers, investigators, and curious strangers discovered objects so deeply unsettling that even touching them felt like a mistake. These are the cursed objects found in abandoned houses across America, and some of them do not want to be found. Our first stop is a crumbling plantation-style house deep in rural Mississippi, abandoned since the early 1970s. Nobody goes near it willingly. They call it the Hollow House. An urban explorer entered through a collapsed back wall in 2019. The ground floor was exactly what you would expect. Warped floorboards, mold climbing every wall, a smell like wet earth and rot. Then she climbed the stairs. The second floor had a single room, and in that room, every inch of the floor, the shelves, and the windowsills was covered in dolls. Hundreds of them. Porcelain, cloth, plastic. Some brand new, still in packaging. Some ancient, cracked, with eyes that had long since melted away. But here is what made her run. They were all facing the door. Every single one, positioned to look at whoever walked in. She photographed the room and left. When she reviewed the photos later, she noticed something in the background, behind the rows of dolls, in the far corner. A rocking chair. Moving. There was no wind. The windows were sealed shut. She never went back.
See that section right there? That's where we hooked the main line. Roger that. It looks structurally unsound already.
In 2021, a demolition crew in rural Ohio was preparing to tear down a farmhouse that had been empty for over 30 years. Standard job. Nothing unusual on the paperwork. Inside, they found the usual. Rotted furniture, collapsed ceilings, squirrel nests in the attic. But in the master bedroom, bolted to the wall, was a full-length antique mirror. Ornate iron frame. Dark, smoky glass. They tried to remove it. The bolts would not turn. They cut the bolts. The mirror did not budge. They removed the surrounding wall entirely. The mirror still hung there, suspended in mid-air, attached to nothing. He swung the sledgehammer directly at the glass. The hammer bounced back. The glass was unmarked. When a paranormal investigator aimed a flashlight at the mirror's surface, the reflection was wrong. It showed the room as it was before demolition. Furniture in place, curtains on the windows, a version of the room that no longer existed. The farmhouse was never demolished. The mirror is still there.
Deep in the bayou country of southern Louisiana stands a house that residents of the nearby town will not name out loud. They call it the Preacher's Place. It was abandoned in 1947 when its occupant, a self-appointed preacher with no formal church, simply vanished. He was there one day and gone the next. Treasure hunters entered the property in 2017. What they found was a locked wooden box, roughly the size of a shoebox, sealed with a padlock engraved with a cross. Inside were over 200 folded slips of paper. Each one contained a handwritten confession, different handwriting on every slip, different sins, different names,
dates going back to the 1920s. But it was not the confessions that disturbed them most. It was the responses, written in the same hand on the back of each slip. Not absolutions, not forgiveness, instructions. Whoever this man was, he was not offering salvation. He was collecting leverage. A Victorian-era house in rural Pennsylvania sat empty for over 50 years before a young couple purchased it in 2018, intending to restore it. On their third day, they found a locked door on the third floor. The key was not among those left by the estate. They eventually pried it open. Inside was a nursery, perfectly preserved, as if time had not touched it. A crib with a handmade quilt, a mobile of wooden birds, a rocking horse in the corner, pale yellow wallpaper with hand-painted rabbits, not faded, not peeling, fresh. The air inside the room smelled of baby powder, in a house that had been sealed for half a century. Then, the wife paused the camera and pointed at the crib. The quilt was creased, the way it creases when someone has been lying on top of it. Within 2 days, the video had 4 million views. In the reflection of the nursery window, barely visible in the background of their final shot, the rocking horse was moving.
The Oregon coast is known for storms, fog, and isolation. It is also known, among those who pay attention, for a particular abandoned lighthouse keeper's cottage that sits on a cliff above the Pacific. Abandoned in the 1950s after its last keeper disappeared during a storm, the cottage has been explored many times. But in 2020, a documentary crew found a loose floorboard in the kitchen, and beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth, a book. No title on the cover. No author. Inside, the first 200 pages were handwritten diary entries, detailed, coherent,
October
dated,
14th,
a record of the lighthouse keeper's final weeks. The entries described an obsession, something he could see in the water below the cliff. The last dated entry ended mid-sentence, but the pages after it were not blank. Hundreds more pages, undated, in a completely different handwriting. And the language was not English, not any known language. It was something that looked like language, something meant to be read, but not by us. 3 members of the documentary crew reported the same nightmare that night, standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at dark water, and something looking back. There is a theory in folklore, older than America itself, that objects absorb the energy of the people who own them. That over time, with enough emotion, enough obsession, enough suffering, a thing can stop being just a thing. The dolls arranged to watch every door, the mirror reflecting a world that no longer exists, the box full of confessions and instructions, the nursery that stayed warm and occupied in a house no one had entered for decades, the book written in a language no one can read. Coincidence, you might say. Overactive imaginations, spooked by darkness and silence and the natural decay of old things. Maybe. But consider this. Every one of these objects was found intact, undamaged, in houses where everything else had crumbled. These things endured, as if they were waiting, as if they knew someone would eventually come. The abandoned houses of America hold more than just dust and broken memories. Some of them hold things that refuse to be forgotten, things that have outlasted the people who left them.
If you ever find yourself in a house like these, standing in a doorway you should not have opened, take the photograph, but do not touch anything. And whatever you do, do not take it home.
Here, like and subscribe.